Hello, everybody. We are live from eTail Canada and continuing our Commerce Rewired podcast series. I am with Melissa, the fabulous Melissa. Why don't you start by introducing yourself and what company you're with?
Hey, so I'm Melissa. I'm currently with Chico, which if you're somewhere else in Canada would be called Pet Values. I'm in the pet industry. We are the largest in terms of store retailer for pet specialty in Quebec, but that's fairly new. So I've been there for 4 months as their president and GM. I have a past experience in retail, about 15 years with Couche-Tard and Tourist.
So we met last year. We had a fabulous summer, and a nice event, and you were at Twister. What led you to make the move to Chico's?
So many things. Um,
Do share.
First off, I love retail. I can't imagine not being in retail. I feel like it's a bit of a cult. Like once you're in it, you just want to continue. I love being able to see what I do out there and being able to talk to actual consumers that provide feedback because feedback is. So I never actually thought about leaving retail. I absolutely love my time at Couche-Tard. It was wonderful. It was getting really, really big. Couche-Tard is one of the biggest retailer in the world. Across Canada, the US, and Europe. And I frankly wasn't looking. But when I got a call at a Canadian retailer that needed Quebec leadership, it just ignited something in me, I guess. The ability to go back to something smaller but mightier. The pet specialty industry is a huge industry. It's growing, which convenience isn't, fortunately. So the idea of a new industry in retail that was growing, that was Canadian in nature, it just made me curious. And in full transparency, the people made it. Once I met the people at Pet Value, caring, kind, so smart, I knew I wanted to learn from them and I knew I wanted to contribute. So that what swayed me to do the change. But to my Kasha people, still love you, miss you. But I'm really happy that I get to contribute to a Canadian brand and pro sales and help our customers.
I know it's great. Your smile hasn't changed, right? At Couche-Tard, I saw you last year. You were happy, like you said. You left on great terms, and now same thing. You still have that smile, so it means like you're in a good spot. It means you're in a good spot. What when you got there? What surprised you most? Like what got and you're like, I cannot believe this is how it is.
It is surprising. Chico, when it was purchased by Pet Value, had six big stores. We're at 114 right now. So very rapid growth. It was done with minimal resources. There's 24 people in our office. So what's truly impressive is in a franchise world, how much the franchisees are able to take on and support the brand growth. And how we're able to do a lot more with less people and less resources. Quite honestly, we're at the stage of our growth. Looking at do we need more resources? Because at some point, that's really big head brand right now. But the most surprising coming from a big company like Couche-Tard, we would always think we were starved and resources. We weren't. Now I know what it looks like to be super lean, but I'm also amazed by how the team is able to execute with less people, less resources that they get out there and they get things done. So a really good reality check. And I think that's just everyone in retail. Retail is doing more with less.
Right. How do you find going from that like VP type level to now that president CEO type role? Like, have you altered things as a leader?
I have, and there's like, in all honesty, there's still days when I need to rein myself in a little bit
Tell us more. This is why you're on the podcast.
because I do have this tendency to want to do things myself or
Yeah.
sort of overshare or guide the strategies. And I have to wait and think and empower people to do it now because it's not a Melissa show, it's a Chico show. And I have pretty talented people on my team. So it's been a bit of a challenge to take that step back and be able to communicate with transparency and empathy in a way that leads people to build a strategy that's going to get us to the results. So I do have moments, and I remember some of my mentors saying, the higher you climb in a company, the lonelier it's going to feel. And it is true. There's moments where I want to speak to somebody about what I'm experiencing, and there's literally no one. But I do have an amazing partner, so hi, Mark. He gets to play a role in this. But apart from him, I really don't know a lot of people in this situation. So thank God I have some good mentors, but it is lonely, and I've never questioned myself more since I took this job. So it is humbling in a way to realize that you can be at the top in one role and then you do another role and you have to learn behaviors all.
So what's if you can share, like what's an example of that? Like where you're like, I'm doubting myself in this scenario there?
So I joined the team, and the team was already all in place, right? And we had an open role. We were looking for talent. And when I initially joined, there was a job description. The president to the left did a great job at setting that up. I sort of just followed along, thinking, yeah, that's what we need to do. As I got to know the business better, I was questioning it, saying, is this what I need? Now that I'm a new leader, is this what I need? And I kid you not, I spent probably a week rewriting job description. What do I need for this team to be successful? What what do I contribute? Where do I stop contributing? What type of person do I need? And you're gonna have a new colleague soon. And I changed my mind 3 times over who I had to pick. We had amazing talent, but I was just unsure who I needed to execute the vision in a way where I could step back, what skill sets they need. So even deciding who you're gonna pick as a team member, and that's probably one of the hardest and most important decisions you're gonna make. That's been on my mind a whole bit past few weeks. I'm sure it's gonna keep on being on my mind in the next few months.
Thanks for sharing it. So speaking of interviews, I'm glad we kind of went there. How quickly do you know if this candidate's gonna fit well? Especially like you're kind of like there's a culture embedded, but you're kind of steering this culture. And like, how quickly do you know in that interview? Or sometimes does it take the second and third interview? But like, can you eliminate candidates quite quickly? Have you gotten really good at that?
Really, I'm the young people would call them vibes.
Yeah.
I think vibes are a thing. How you connect with someone, especially because so many things are done over Teams right now. How you connect with someone from the get-go, just how they introduce themselves, the pace at which they speak, how they bring humor into the conversation, how honest they are when they don't know the answer to a question. That helps. And I always put a really quirky question in my interview. One of my favorite one being if you had a magic wand and you could create the boss of your dream, what would it be? Or the other one is, since I don't know you well enough, could you share the name of a cartoon character or someone on TV that has the same personality? And typically, it's not even the answer pool. It's how they react to a really weird question that lets me know if on a day-to-day basis we're going to be able to interact. I do find that at our level, it's less about the skills. Like I look at your resume, I know if you can do marketing, I know if you can do operation, right? It's more about are you going to be able to integrate the team, build a culture, and are you and I going to be able to have really good banter, challenge, going to be able to stand up to me and tell me when I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So I would say typically after the first interview, I have a pretty good fit.
You know, I love that you mentioned that. So I have one of my own where I ask, and it's I'll ask them like if they read, and depending on what they answer, because sometimes they say no, but if they say yes, then I'll have the follow-up question: What are you reading? And if there's some hesitancy in there, right? It's like they've lied about reading. And so I kind of dig in, or if they say yes, and I'm like, okay, what book are you reading? What was your favorite book? Like, has it had an impact? Like, I get to know if they've actually told the truth or not on that. Like, that's my question because I am curious. And if they say no, that's fine. But then I need to know how they're keeping up on things, whether it's podcasts or whatever it is. I need to know. It's funny that you have those questions. I like the magic wand one. Might steal that. But speaking of books or mentors or maybe TED Talks. What's inspired you recently, or dating back, let's say a couple of years, even like a mentor, a book, or a TED Talk, something like kind of inspired you and ignited the.
I get mostly energized by mentor. I think the in person or even just building the relationship. I listen to TikTok. I read books. I really like the book by Chris Carson. So
Yeah.
maybe just a little bit of that information
out.
there. I will shout out to
And you
Chris.
haven't read mine, like you're gonna get a free copy.
Yes, it's right here. So on next podcast, I will read
Yes.
Johnny's book. I like books and I like TED Talks, but mentoring to me and even coaching to some extent is what has the largest impact. Because I talked about it being lonely at the top. There's a level of details that you're not going to get to in some of the books or TED Talk because there's confidentiality and liability. I find that when you get a really good mentor that has maybe a similar path, not necessarily in the same industry, they're able to dig deep and give you insights as to what behavior or what you can expect or what blind sides you have in your situation. And I find that people pointing out what I don't know is always the most helpful to me. I had a mentor once say, spend more time on what you're really good at and sort of perfect the craft of what you're good at, which is where the podcast and the books help. And make sure you understand what you're not good at so it's not dangerous. That's where mentorship has really helped me, is people pointing out things that I would never see myself because they're not in my area of expertise or just in my pursuits. So shout out to my mentors. All of the mentors I've had in retail have really made a big impact on why.
It's great. I think Gary Vaynerchuk says that too. Like, don't focus on your weaknesses. Like, focus on your strengths, and you're just fine. So, if we rewind like 20 years, what is this Mel saying to that Mel?
My God, 20 years ago. I would say I would probably tell her to trust her gut more. I went through ebbs and flows. I mean, retail. It's not always easy. And I've always worked in male dominated industry. I am young. I look younger. So so I've always been sort of the little girl in the room, and I think even to this day, honestly, there are days where I still suffer from imposter syndrome, but it's gotten better with age. If I was able to go back to the me that sort of what a first job after that, I would say don't make yourself small. Like if you have an opinion, just speak it out. If you're wrong, you're gonna learn. There's really no harm, but surround yourself with the right people. If you meet good people in your life that support you, that care for you, the tougher time are going to be a little easier, and then you're going to have better just job opportunities. So the trust is a big thing. Although, if I'm going to be honest, I don't know that 20 years ago I would have listened to that advice.
Probably not.
So the one that I would have been able to act on is that network. I don't think I properly understood networking until I was in my late 30s. It felt like a thing where you go to an event and you talk to people and have a glass of wine. I've become more intentional with networking, find people that have similar life stories or that you share interests with. And through time, you will build a relationship that will help you in your career. But that takes time and that takes intentionality. And I don't know that when you're in your 20s, you fully get that. So if I could infuse some of that knowledge, I would have started building the network that I have today a little bit.
As we wind down, women in leadership. Okay, you mentioned it before. I want to touch on that, like especially if you started, like you've been in male-dominated industry. Pets a bit different, probably
Pet is way different.
wildly different. What would you tell young women today on that track, like women's leadership and like how to empower them with what you're doing or words of encouragement potentially, especially if they are in a male-dominated industry?
So I'm
What do you
going to
tell
have
them?
a controversial take on this. That's never shared when I go into a networking event. Your mentors probably need to be male, at least half. Like half of your mentors, half of your network needs to be male. I find that very often the female will stick together, will support each other. That's great. But board seats are still held in the US more by male named John than by women. That is still a reality. And it's evolving and it's changing. So we're not going to change the world by paying just a group of women on our side doing our thing. So you do need to find those mentors that are going to help and support you that are female, that know what it's like to, especially if you become a mom, right? That is a life-changing experience, and to be able to relate to a leader that has gone through the same transition is usually powerful. But you need to find male leaders that are going to be in the room, that are going to be speaking on your behalf, that are going to be allies. And there's so many of them up. So many men don't see necessarily gender. They just want the best person on their team. They want to advocate for the best person. I feel like women tend to stick with women a whole lot. And men, see, Johnny's an ally. We have ally everywhere. So it's important. My best mentors have been men. So surround yourself with people that see your work and that are going to push you to go a little bit tougher on yourself. But it needs to be a varied group. And we say male, female. It's also about expertise, age, cultural background. I'm against this whole like pigeoning women into women's only group. And we're part of society, and we need everybody to help us. But we need to be realistic. If you're in a male-dominated industry, you need to understand their point of view and see what discussions are happening when you're not in the room, so that you can then impact those conversations when you do get a.
That's great advice. So last question. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
I would love to read people's minds because I think although it might be hurtful sometimes, I think it'd be easier to build a good network because you know whose intentions are right, but also would save a whole lot of time. The people that have worked for me know that I like to say I don't do bullshit. Apologies. I don't know if I can say that on your
I think you
podcast.
can.
And if I could read people's mind, then I could get through a lot of the niceties of just when people are trying to sell me stuff, we could really understand what their motivation is and work and collaborate with the right people that have the right statements. I'm willing to take the hurtful comments to get all of the brain power from reading people.
It's great. So you heard it here. She had a magic wand. She would be able to read people's mind, which could be great and it could be scary. But I just want to say thanks for coming on the podcast. It's been great to get to know you. meeting you last year, following your journey on LinkedIn, seeing the evolution, what's happening. I know you mentioned imposter syndrome. You were one of the great leaders in retail today. So hold your head up high because you're doing great. Thanks a lot for coming on the podcast.
Thank
Thank you.